Take a look at the calendar for me, Eric.
It's
If you're looking at
December.
the calendar, when do you think your carnivore diet will end?
Probably the end of the first week in January.
Okay. All right. I was wondering what you were going to be doing or what your diet would be like on the 27th, because that is the day of the Royal Rumble. And I have it on good authority that you may or may not need a little liquid courage, because it's been a while since we recorded. We had the holiday travel.
I knew you were going to do this. I just knew it. I could see it coming. I knew this last night before I closed my eyes and go to sleep. Yep. Conrad's going to drill me.
Oh, yeah, it's happening. And it's happening because, once again, for the second time this year, you and I made a bet about CM Punk, whether or not he would be back at the pay-per-view and debut on Collision, the new show, and most recently, whether or not he would be at Survivor Series or the Royal Rumble. And we went so far as to not only bet your hair, but my hair. It was a hair versus hair matchup. And I am now 2-0 in hair matches. Dorian, if you're listening, I'm available, but I do know Yob. I went over. And Eric, you're going to look like Lex Luthor again at our Top Guy party down at the Royal Rumble. No, it's not Top Guy weekend, but we are doing a little get together. You're going to be in the area. I've got family who may or may not be in the area. So we're going to have a great time, and we're going to shave your head again. But we got to figure out what the fun angle is. Like, are we going to do some sort of charitable thing, or do I just get the satisfaction of making you bald?
Well, I like the charity angle, but I also have to do something differently. Like we all know what I look like bald. I mean, it's not that big a deal. And besides, I look freaking good no matter what. So we got to.
Would you like to nominate Mrs. B to take your place?
Yeah, that ain't happening.
What if Garrett grew his out and I shaved you both to look like Road Warriors?
Or maybe.
All right.
You shave my head, or someone else does, if we go the charity route, and we shave it into a mohawk similar to my son Garrett's.
Well, that's what I was going to say. He rocks a Road Warrior haircut anyway.
Yeah.
So if he's got the mohawk, that's more like Animal, but you're going to be Hawk. You're going to have the double mohawk.
All right.
You think you would still look cool in a double mohawk?
Fuck yeah.
Well, okay then. How about that?
Yeah. Well, boys, so let's do that. We'll as a nod to the Road Warriors. Yep. My son will be there. Garrett will be there with us, and we can do the Road Warrior tribute haircut.
How about that? So he's going to look like Road Warrior Hawk. It's happening in Tampa, Royal Rumble weekend. Eric, I know you've touched on the business aspect of this a little bit with our pal John Alba over on Strictly Business, which you can drop or which you can listen to on this same feed each and every week. But I do want to get your quick take for those handful of listeners who listen to this show, but not that show. What's your take on the big news that CM Punk is now with WWE?
Obviously I was surprised, and not surprised if you go back and listen to some of our discussions, both you and I and with Alba on Strictly Business. It's not that I didn't think WWE would ever bring Punk back. It's that I was really unconvinced that they would bring him back for Survivor Series. I thought if they were going to bring him back, the more likely opportunity would be Royal Rumble, simply because of the nature of the format. And it would have fit so nicely. And I also felt like WWE has so much momentum right now, and there's no weakness in their roster. There's just no shame in their game. They've got, I think, one of the best rosters that we've seen in any company or any two companies combined for the last 25 years or more. So I didn't see the need. And you had a different point of view. And I think if I remember correctly, you were mostly focused on Raw renewal rights or licensing the program to another network. And perhaps that would have been the reason to bring in Punk for even more of a pop than they've already gotten, even more momentum than they already have. I discounted that. I thought if it was going to happen, it happened in Royal Rumble. Still not convinced it would happen, but it did. One thing I do want to say about the way they brought Punk in was masterful. Absolute surprise. happened towards the tail end of the show when anybody that came to that arena thinking maybe he's going to show up, maybe tonight because it's Chicago. And by the time the show was almost over, I'm sure most people forgot all about Punk until he showed up. And I thought that was a work of art, keeping that secret and surprising the audience that way. And I feel good about it because taking Punk aside and some of the things that he's done over the last 18 months, set all that off to the side, because there may have been more to the story than what we know. That aside, Punk has got an amazing history. There's backstory. In other words, there's story to build upon. There's the anticipation, which started long before Punk showed up. The minute Punk got let go from AEW, the speculation and the anticipation about Punk coming back to WWE had already begun, despite the fact that everybody, came out and said, no, we're not talking, we're not interested, blah, 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 blah. The chatter was still there. There was still anticipation there. So what do we have now? We've got great story. We've got anticipation. Reality. This is the Sarsa formula, as documented in Controversy Creates Cash. Now you've got the reality. What's the reality in this situation? The reality is the last 18 months. The reality is the last 10 years. This is a guy who walked out with the infamous pipe bomb promo, which, by the way, I had been told by people involved that was scripted for him.
Of course,
whether it was or it wasn't. I'm sorry?
It was absolutely scripted. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of I've said that before, people jumped all over me for saying it, but it's true. I have a reason to believe it's true. Let's put it that way. But despite that, you've got story, you've got anticipation, you've got the reality of the situation, which is part of the story, but it's authentic. It's authentic. It's real. It's not contrived. It's not out of the mind of a writer or Triple H or Vince McMahon or Bruce Pritchard. This is authentic, real story that we're building upon. So you've got story, you've got anticipation, you've got reality. Wow, we've already had the surprise. We're 4 out of 5, and we haven't even put the boots on yet. And now all that's left is action. And is there anybody going to question whether or not there's going to be some great action in the matches coming up with Punk in WWE, given the story, the backstory, the history? And look at Seth Rollins' reaction when Punk showed up. Boy, know where this one's going to go pretty quick. So it just has all 5 of the most important elements that it takes for anything to work in any business. Really, the Sarsa formula applies to almost any business, and it certainly applies to wrestling. And we've got all 5 boxes checked and ready to go. So I think this is going to be a really a successful run for Punk, which I'm happy for him, even though I don't know him. It would sure be nice to end your career on a high note as opposed to the dreck that he was going through over the last 18 months. So good for him. Good for WWE. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to get my head shaved again, but we're going to make as much fun out of it as we can. And here we go.
Here we go. Indeed. I am pumped that Punk is back. I think it's great for business. The rumor and innuendo is that he is setting merchandise records over there yet again. We knew that he did that for Pro Wrestling Tees, but I hear that, had a banner day over there.